Good day everyone, good day to our teacher, Dr. Halos. I am Shella Mayor Hernandez from BKID 1. We will present to you the historical foundation of education. So what comes into your mind when you heard the historical foundation of education? So let me first read the quote from the famous John Dewey. When a school introduces and trains each child of society into membership within such a little community, saturating him with the spirit of service and providing him with the instruments of effective self-direction, we shall have the deepest and best guarantee of a larger society which is worthy, lovely, and harmonious. So, the question is, what is the function of schools according to John Dewey's statement? Who create schools? And what is the relationship between schools and society? Let's conceptualize. Education or school is an institution created by society. Education is a function of society and as such arises from the nature and character of society itself. Society seeks to preserve itself, and to do this it maintains its functions and institutions, one of which is education, to assure its survival, stability, and convenience. As John Dewey claimed, it is the school that introduces and trains each child of society into membership within such a little community, saturating him with the spirit of service and providing him with the instrument of effective self-direction. When schools succeed to do this, in the words of Dewey, we shall have the deepest and best guarantee of a larger society which is worthy, harmonious, and lovely. This is called the socialization process. Socialization is the process of learning the roles, statuses, and values necessary for the participation in social institutions. Socialization is a lifelong process. It occurs primarily during early childhood, but as we progress from infancy to old age, we shed old roles and adopt new ones. Role learning that prepares us for future roles is termed anticipatory socialization. Because of anticipatory socialization, most of us are more or less prepared for our future roles like spouse, parent, professional, teacher. The family is the most important agent of socialization. Psychology tells us that the self-concept formed during childhood has lasting consequences. Let's move to the education in primitive society. In primitive societies, preliterate persons faced the problem of survival in an environment that pitted them against natural forces and wild animals. Let's move to the key periods in educational history. Historical group or period includes primitive societies, Greek, Roman, Arabic, medieval, Renaissance, and Reformation. This historical group or period has educational goals, curriculum, agents, and influences on Western education. In primitive societies, survival against natural forces was the need, and so what were thought were survival skills and values to cultivate group cohesiveness. For the Athenian in ancient Greece, what mattered most in education was the rounded development of every individual, while for the Spartan, it was the development of soldiers and military leaders. For the early Romans, schools needed to develop a sense of civic responsibility and to develop administrative and military skills as citizens of the Roman Empire. For the ancient Arabic world, where Islam rose, the most important concern of education was to cultivate religious commitment to Islamic beliefs. During the medieval period, schools were concerned with the development of religious commitment, knowledge, and ritual to establish order. Renaissance period was a fervent period of European cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth. Following the Middle Ages, education was focused on the rediscovery of classical philosophy, literature, and art. The Reformation period had as for its educational goals the cultivation of a sense of commitment to a particular religious denomination and general literacy. The history of the Philippines educational system. The summary of the Philippine educational system is that education is a function of society, and as such, what are taught in schools arise from the nature and character of society itself. What society considers important is what schools teach. Education during the pre-colonial period. Education was informal and unstructured, decentralized. Fathers taught their sons how to look for food and other means of livelihood. Mothers taught their girls to do the household chores. This education basically prepared their children to become good husbands and wives. Children were provided more vocational training but lesser academics. Teachers were tribal tutors, babaylan or Catalonan. Education during the Spanish era. Education was formal and organized. It was authoritarian in nature. Tribal tutors of the pre-Spanish period were replaced by Spanish missionaries. Pupils attended formal schooling in the parochial school. Instruction was religion-oriented. Christian doctrines, sacred songs and music, and prayers were taught because they were required for confession and communion. There was a separate school for boys and girls. Wealthy Filipinos or the ilustrados were accommodated in the schools. Educational Decree of 1863. This law gave Filipinos a complete system of education from elementary to the collegiate level. The law provided for the establishment of the elementary schools in all municipalities in the country. Although religion was the core of the curriculum included subjects reading, writing, arithmetic, history, Christian doctrine, Spanish language, vocal music, agriculture for the boys and needlework for the girls. Attendance in school was compulsory between the ages of 7 and 12. Education during the American Regime 1898 to 1946. The Americans promoted democratic ideals and the democratic way of life. The schools maintained by the Spaniards for more than 3 centuries were closed but were reopened on August 29, 1898 by the Secretary of the Interior. A system of free and compulsory elementary education was established by Malolo's Constitution. In May 1898, the first American school was established in Corregidor, and shortly after the capture of Manila in 1899, 7 schools were opened in the city. Training was done through the schools, both public and secular, manned by chaplains and military officers of the U.S. Army. Thomasites arrived in the Philippines on August 23, 1901. The University of the Philippines was founded in 1908. UP was the first state school of university status. The Department of Public Instruction set up a 3-level school system. The first level considered a 4-year primary and 3-year intermediate or 7-year elementary curriculum. The second level was a 4-year junior college and later a 4-year program. The Commonwealth period 1935 to 1942. Free education in public schools was provided all over the country in accordance with the 1935 Institution. Vocational education and some household activities like sewing, cooking, and farming were also given importance. Education also emphasized nationalism, so the students were taught about the life of the Filipino heroes. Vocational education and some household activities were also given importance. Good manners and discipline were also taught to the students. The Institute of Private Education was established in order to observe private schools, formal adult education was also given. The Japanese occupation. Aims of education during Japanese occupation make the people understand the position of the Philippines as a member of East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. Eradication of the idea of reliance upon Western states, particularly the US and Great Britain. Fostering a new Filipino culture based on the consciousness of the people as Orientals. Elevating the moral of the people, giving up over emphasis on materialism. Diffusion of elementary education and promotion of vocational education. Striving for the diffusion of the Japanese language in the Philippines and termination of the use of English in the schools. Developing in people the love of labor.
Good day everyone! This time we will be discussing about the historical foundation of education. In this topic, we will be learning about the origin and developments of education in the Philippines. Before we start our lesson, let me introduce myself first. I am Charmy Salas Laylay from BCA Ed 1. Chapter 2, Historical Foundation of Education. Post-colonial education in Philippines. The following are the development during the post-colonial education in the Philippines. Education aimed at the full of realization of the democratic ideals and way of life. The civil service eligibility of teachers was made permanent pursuant to RA 1079 in June 15, 1954. A daily flag ceremony was made compulsory in all schools, including the singing of the national anthem, pursuant to RA 1265 approved on June 11, 1955. Curricular offerings in all schools, the life, the works, and writings of Jose Rizal, especially the Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, shall be included in all levels. Elementary education was nationalized and matriculation fees were abolished. During this time, free elementary education for the Filipinos was implemented. Magna Carta for Teachers was passed into law by virtue of RA 4670. Magna Carta for Teachers envisions to provide programs for the promotion and improvement of the well-being and economic status of public school teachers. Integration of values in all learning areas, emphasis on mastery learning, YDT and CAT introduced as new courses media of instruction. YDT refers to Youth Development Training and CAT refers to Citizen Advancement Training. Bilingual education of policy mandates the use of English and Filipino separately as media of instruction in schools. Education Act of 1982 created the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sport. NCEE or National College Entrance Examination introduced Executive Order No. 117, President Corazon C. Aquino renamed Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports or DECS in 1987. Creation of the Board for Professional Teachers composed of 5 under PRC. Replacement of PBET or Professional Board Examination for Teachers by LET or Licensure Examination for Teachers. Transfer of authority of administering the LET from CSC and DECS to the Board of Professional Teachers under PRC. Trifocalization of education system. The trifocal education system refocused DECS mandate to basic education, which covers elementary, secondary, and non-formal education including culture and sports. TESDA now administers the post-secondary, middle-level manpower training and development RA 7796 Technical Education and Skills Development Act of 1994. SHED is responsible for higher education RA 7722 Higher Education Act of 1994. These are the other developments in education. Republic Act 9155, otherwise called the Governance of Basic Education Act, was passed transforming the name Department of Education, Culture and Sports or DECS to the Department of Education or DepEd and redefining the role of field offices, regional offices, division offices, district offices, and schools. It provides the overall framework for school head empowerment by strengthening their leadership roles and school-based management within the context of transparency and local accountability. Governance of Basic Education Act RA 9155 was passed renaming the DECS to DepEd and redefining the role of field offices, which include the regional offices, division offices, district offices, and schools. Values education is offered as a separate subject in NSEC and integrated in all subject areas in both curricula implementation of new secondary education curriculum or NCEC. RA 10157, January 20, 2012, Kindergarten Act, an act institutionalizing the kindergarten education into the basic education system. K-12 program, RA 10533, on May 15, 2013, covers kindergarten and 12 years of basic education, 6 years of primary education, 4 years of junior high school, and 2 years of senior high school to provide sufficient time for mastery of concepts and skills, develop lifelong learners, and prepare graduates for tertiary education, middle-level skills development, employment, and entrepreneurship. Philippine education also focused on the important events in each historical period of the country. During the pre-colonial period, students were given vocational training but lesser academics and taught them to be good fathers and mothers. During the Spanish period, schools focused on religious formation to help them live the Christian faith. The American regime educated the Filipinos to become a good citizens of a democratic country, while the Japanese regime taught them love of labor. With this, we can imply that although the Spaniards, American, and Japanese invaded the Philippines, they contributed in educational development of the Filipinos. These are the goals of educational system during the post-colonial period. 1. Foster love of country. 2. Teach the duties of citizenship. 3. Develop moral, character, self-discipline, and scientific, technological, and vocational efficiency. The following are the goals of Philippine education. To provide thoughtful graduates imbued with values reflective of a humanist orientation, example, fundamental respect for others as human beings with intrinsic rights, cultural rootedness, a vocation to serve, analytical and problem-solving skills, the ability to think things through the ethical and social implication of a given source of action. The competency to learn continuously throughout life that will enable them to live meaningfully in a complex, rapidly changing and globalized world while engaging in their community and the nation's development issues concerned the Commission on Higher Education. The DepEd vision. We dream of Filipinos who passionately love their country and whose values and competencies enable them to realize their full potential and contribute meaningfully to building the nation. The DepEd mission. To protect and promote the right of every Filipino to quality, equitable, culture-based, and complete basic education where students learn in a child-friendly, gender-sensitive, safe, and motivating environment. Teachers facilitate learning and constantly nurture every learner. Administrators and staff, as stewards of the institution, ensure and enabling supportive learning to happen. Family, community, and other stakeholders are actively engaged and share responsibility for developing lifelong learners. Our core values: maka-Diyos, makatao, makakalikasan, at makabansa. According to Dewey, these are the importance of studying the history of education. Educational issues and problems are often rooted in the past. The study of educational history can help us to understand and solve today's problems. Realistic effort to reform education begin with present conditions which are a product of our past. By using our past, we can shape the future. The study of education's past provides a perspective that explains and illuminates our present activities as teachers. This article reports on Dole's urgency in addressing skill mismatch. Dole urged to address job skills mismatch, published June 19, 2018 by Van Elaine Terrazola. Senator Joel Villanueva on Tuesday prodded the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, and other concerned agencies to report on the status of its programs aimed at addressing job skills mismatch. Senator Joel Villanueva, or Senate of the Philippines Facebook page, Manila Bulletin. Villanueva, chairperson of the Senate Committee on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development, made the appeal, as he called, anew on the government to make sure that the workers who will be employed under the Build infrastructure program are skills ready. It has been our consistent call on the concerned government agencies, Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, Department of Education, DepEd, and Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA, to upskill our workers and address the problem of job skills mismatch, which becomes imperative with the implementation of the administration's Build program, Villanueva said in a statement. According to Terrazola, Senator Joel Villanueva, workers who will be employed under Build infrastructure must be trained to address the problem on job skills mismatch. These are all about my report on the historical foundation of education. Thank you and have a nice day.